Hello, class and everyone else. I'm going to make an announcement. Soon, I'm going to have a series of videos on color theory. Now, those videos aren't ready yet. I will be posting them soon, so stay tuned. But I did want to give a preview in this video and talk about why those videos will be different. Of course, I'm Professor Tweed, and you know, in the past I've made many other videos. I have hundreds of videos on architectural software and how to make architectural drawings, just like this one here. Now, in the classroom, I don't just teach software, of course, I teach design. And design is more interesting, right? It's higher level concepts. That's really what we want to do. And so I'm going to start making videos about this content as well. And I've decided I'm going to start with color theory. And there's several reasons for that. So the first thing you'll know is if you've watched my other videos, you probably know I already like to play with color. And this is one drawing that's a good example of it. Because, of course, this is a perspective. It's not a true representation of a perspective, particularly in color. It's stylized. And I like to stylize a lot of my work because that's really the only way to pull out certain emotions. Of course, the other big difference you probably know is I'm in the video, you can see my face. I think that's important because as we get into these other content, these higher level design ideas, I think making the personal connection, being able to see my face, being able to see my emotions is going to just make learning this content more interesting and more helpful. Because I do want to make a couple points about what the content will cover in color theory and the other videos that I may make in the future. And that's I'm going to bring in my own point of view. All right, so I'm not going to teach you things that you might have learned in kindergarten about color theory, talking about primary colors, secondary colors, so on and so forth. You probably already know them. If not, there's plenty of other resources out there. Instead, I want to talk about how to use color theory in design. And primarily when I think about design, I like to talk about it through the lens of patterns. All right, so I think once you understand patterns, it can be applicable in your design process. I'm not going to go into the philosophy of why I think it's patterns. Instead, I think it's best just to go right in with the example of color theory, and you'll see how it works out. And color theory is nice because I think the patterns that are inherent in color theory, they're pretty easy to understand, and then they're pretty easy to take the next step, which is to apply them to your own work. So color theory is great because of that. Now, what I'm not going to talk about is I'm not going to talk about it from the perspective of, let's say, a painter. When you're painting, you certainly have certain needs when you're dealing with color, but I'm going to look at it as a designer, which to me that basically means choosing color palettes. And many people are sort of nervous about choosing color palettes. It's really not all that hard, but you might need these steps of learning to be able to do that, and that's what I hope this will work on. The other thing I want to mention as well, in the videos, I will get deep into content. I don't want to be too academic about it, especially in color theory, because I think people have an innate sense of color, they can use it. So, you know, I'm not going to get hung up with like, is black a color? Well, for design, it's a color. But in color theory circles, it can be debated. I'm not interested in that. Let's use it. Let's design with it. Now, I don't want to completely forget my digital roots, so I've developed a way for these videos not only showing my face, but also interacting with the digital world in my presentations here. So not surprisingly, color theory is going to deal with a lot of color wheels, but you can see what I'll be able to do with it here. I just want to show you a quick example of what you'll see coming up. What I'm going to be able to do is place things right onto the television screen like this. So for example, if I want to select the color red, I can do that. I can put one on blue as well down here, and I can choose, say, green, which of course is a standard triadic color harmony rule that you might have learned if you're dealing with color theory in the past. So it's sort of fun. It's an interesting way to point to the TV screen. I also can interact by building in animations to this presentation as well and being able to see what happens. And lastly, I can even actually draw right on the screen to point out other facts if I want to. So for example, oftentimes when we're dealing with traditional harmony rules such as this, they'll draw the geometric shapes that connect these things, which already sort of hint at a hidden pattern that might be right in here already. So that will be a sort of fun way to interact with this content. Now the cut, because I got to remove all this stuff and erase it. Now I think when it comes to color theory and design, again, it's about creating color palettes. So I wanted to provide a sneak preview here about a color palette you'll see me develop in following videos. I don't want to get into all the details here, but we can certainly see the diagram that I've created is definitely unique to what is typically presented. And that's really what we're going to get into. Now, the last thing I want to note is that I'm an architect. So an architect talking about color theory is a little interesting because when you stop and think about it, architects have not used colors for centuries. Modernists didn't use color, the Renaissance didn't use color, they didn't use color in between. But I would say things are changing. The Waterloo Museum is just one example, and I personally think color is fun and it's great. Fortunately, 20 years ago when I was in school, color was not taught, so I had to go and learn it on my own. But I'm hoping that this video on color theory will help architects and other designers not be afraid of color, be able to jump right in and use it in design, because not only are my videos coming soon, but I do think architecture and design as a whole will be experimenting with color moving forward. So thanks for watching this video, this announcement, and I hope that you tune in for my videos on color theory. They should be really great. Thanks.